Ryan Walters' tenure as state superintendent got off to an interesting start. Now, last week, he presented his predecessor's budget to a House Appropriations Committee, while admitting he would return to offer his own budget once it was passed by the State Education Board. Well, that happened last Thursday. And joining us now to discuss what's in that proposal is education reporter Taylor Jackson. Taylor?
Rich State Superintendent Ryan Walters is changing things up in his budget request. And those changes are meant to incentivize teachers who go above and beyond in the classroom and to improve early reading skills for students.
Thank you all for joining us.
Before Walters could outline his budget request, House Education Appropriation Committee Chairman Mark McBride wanted to know if the superintendent kept the class wallet misspent federal funds in mind in this new budget proposal.
As Attorney General, Drummond made the decision to drop the lawsuit against Class Wallet and the Federal Department of Education, but they're still seeking $650,000 in repayment for the illegitimate purchases. Does your budget contain funding to pay these funds back to the federal government?
We're working with the governor's office to continue to figure out what next steps will be as we're reviewing the Attorney General's comments to develop.
Walters turned attention to the new budget proposal, which includes a teacher incentive pay plan and more money for reading education.
I am proposing this morning a total appropriation request of $3.5 billion.
This request is $330 million more than the current budget, but $59 million less than what was proposed by former State Superintendent Joy Hoffmeister. Walters says the teacher shortage in Oklahoma is becoming more prevalent.
What we've seen, though, is while we have an increase of students, we have a decrease of teachers in the state. And so if you look at the last indicator that we have here on this bar graph, we're looking at roughly just shy of 700,000 students, and we have about 42,000 teachers.
The previous budget proposal included an across-the-board $5,000 pay raise increase for teachers. Walters dropped that from his budget proposal and says his teacher incentive plan should attract more teachers to the state and help retain current Oklahoma educators.
Because of that, I believe it's essential that we pass a teacher incentive pay program. What I'm proposing today is $150 million in new dollars that will go towards teacher incentive pay. I believe this is required for us to retain our best and brightest teachers.
Teachers could make up to $10,000 in addition to their salary by meeting certain benchmarks in the plan. Walters contends it will funnel more dollars to high-performing instructors.
What we've seen is this has been an evaluative tool that allows for teachers to show their effectiveness, no matter if they're a high school math teacher or a third grade art teacher. It gives broad discretion to districts in order to judge the performance of teachers and how they're doing in the classroom. What we would do is we would couple that with the PL focus that, again, aligned and allowed districts and individual teachers to show exactly how they're able to grow their class.
Lawmakers questioned how Walters' teacher incentive plan would work.
Sounds like there's still a lot of questions of how that would actually work when put into effect. Would you be willing to maybe discuss a pilot program at a couple districts just to kind of see what works and what doesn't?
I have not found enough evidence to go to Mark McBride and say we absolutely need to put $150 million in teacher incentive pay in order to make this a mechanism that works. Do you have an estimate of how many teachers would be ready for that money and how that would get dispersed in the 24-25 school year?
We're not accustomed to having an agency head come in, present a request for an additional $259 million with no concrete plans about how those dollars will be carved out and spent. And so my question is this. Will you help us understand the details about how this money will be allocated and expended? And
we can provide the detail and continue to work with the legislature on providing a clear explanation as to how every dollar can be spent, what partnerships would look like, what it would look like in rural areas of the state as compared to urban, suburban areas of the state.
Walters wants more attention paid to early reading levels and is proposing an initiative to pull up Oklahoma's ranking of 49th in the nation for reading.
The Reading Sufficiency Act has been in place since 2016, and in the statute, it is stated that Each child is to receive up to $150 allocated directly per pupil. And what we've seen in the last few years, I want you to notice kind of that line at the top of the bar graph is showing what the average per pupil spend has been with the RSA allocation. And we've fallen below $150 per child. So I would request that we add the $1.7 million into this fund to ensure that we have that.
$100 million in additional funding is being requested to start the Every Kid Reads Recovery Act. Funding would go towards after-school reading programs and dyslexia intervention.
I'm disappointed that what I heard was essentially 2011 regurgitated, from reading districts to TLE to punitive RSA tests. It's the same plan we heard 12 years ago. The only difference is it now costs $100 million.
Today was a great day because we got to see how we're going to move the ball forward on education. We rolled out a plan. We had a great, robust discussion around it, and we had an ability to set forth the path forward for our kids.
This is only the beginning for the proposed budget. Lawmakers will determine the final education budget during the session.